Hi friends, welcome to the Paint at Home kit. Today we're going to be doing Andrea and Emma from Lego Friends, and I'm super excited about this painting. So inside your kit we've got everything you need to get started and get painting. So let's make sure you've got everything set up. So in your kit you're going to find that you've got a brown covering, so go ahead and open that up and set that out wherever you're painting today. Also inside, you'll find that you've got a blue towel that we'll use when we rinse out our brushes. Also inside your kit, you've got 5 brushes. You've got a large square brush, 2 small square brushes, a nice big round brush, and this really cute little brush for doing little tiny details. Also inside your kit, you've got a pre-sketched canvas. That'll be our guidelines for what we're going to paint for Andrea and Emma today. And then inside, you've got your paint colors. We've got yellow, pink, we've got Andrea's color, Emma's color, purple, a dark blue, a light blue, white, black, and brown. And so what I've done with my paint kit today is I've left yellow, pink, the 2 skin tones, purple, all right inside the containers. And then I've taken a little bit of the white, the dark blue, and the light blue, put those onto my tray with a little bit of the black and brown. So you can put those on your tray if you want to. If not, you can leave those right inside the containers. And then the one thing that's a little bit hard to put inside of your kit is a glass of water. So go ahead and get a cup or a container of water that we'll use for rinsing out your brushes. And once you've got that set up, then we're ready to start painting. First brush that I'm going to pick up is one of these small round brushes. So I'm going to pick up just a little tiny bit of white paint on the very tip of my brush, and I'm going to come inside and I'm going to paint the teeth white. So I'm doing this first so that way it has a chance to dry, because it's a little bit easier to put down the white color at the very beginning than it is to do after I've painted in their pink lips. So I'm putting just a little tiny coat of white paint, and it's totally okay if I go outside the lines. This takes us to our first time of rinsing our brush. I'm going to take the brush, push it all the way to the bottom of the glass cup or your paper cup, whatever you're using today. I'm going to push the brush and scrub it on the bottom of the glass instead of moving it around at the top, and then this way it doesn't splash the water out of the glass. Then I'm going to take this cute little blue towel, bring it over to my glass, set my brush in it, and then give it a squeeze dry. That way I don't drip any water onto my painting. All right, great job. All right, let's move on to the next step. All right, the next step is really fun. We're gonna do all of the blue that's in the background behind our 2 Lego minifigs, behind our friends' characters. So I'm gonna pick up one of the small square brushes that we have. I'm gonna take a little bit of the light blue and some of the white paint. And I'm going to push some of my white paint towards my light blue. I'm going to grab a little bit of the light blue, and I'm going to kind of pat those colors together in a little spot on my tray. I'm going to take that brush and I'm going to begin to paint the background behind my 2 figures. So as you're painting, just a little bit of paint will go a long way. We want to make sure that if there's any clumps of paint, we want to press those down into the canvas. Just a nice thin coat of paint. So I'm going to come up on the edge of my brush and get into some of these little cracks and crevices. If that's a little bit difficult, remember that you can switch to the round brush. And then I like to use the flat edge of the brush to go around any outlines, like the outside of the heart. I'm going to come in and fill in the space between Emma's shirt and her arm and her pant. One really great thing about having this canvas at home is you can pick it up very carefully and you can turn the canvas so that it's a little bit easier to get around all of the parts of the inside of the heart. You want to try to keep the canvas in front of you as you paint so you don't have to reach across and accidentally get paint on the sides of your hand. So I'm going to turn my painting again. That way I make sure I don't accidentally run my hand into any wet paint. So I'm going to flip that canvas one more time. Right, I'm going to turn the canvas one more time. And I'm going to get the last part, which is right here. It's between the jean pants and the shirt and this little corner nook right here. So again, if you need to switch brushes to get into those little areas, you can. So I'm going to take a look over my painting and make sure that I've pushed down any raised paint that might have gotten past me, and made sure that I covered up all the spots. So I've got the area in between Emma's top and pants, all the way around her brush and her art easel, around the music note and the microphone for Andrea, between her shirt and this little area where her leg is up down by the bottom of the heart. So I've got that down. I'm going to take my brush to the bottom of my rinsing glass. I'm going to move it back and forth on the bottom so I don't splash the water out the top. I'm going to bring my towel right over to my cup, and you'll see my brush comes out nice and clean. I'm going to give it a squeeze, and then I am ready to start my next step. So if you're not ready to move on, just go ahead and pause the video and then start it back up when you're ready. If you're ready to move on, then let's go ahead. All right, great. So we're gonna go ahead and lay down our skin tone color for Emma. So I'm gonna come over to the jar of color that says Emma, and I'm gonna take the lid off. And then I've already gone ahead and peeled off that ceiling layer that was on here. Since I'm going to be doing Emma, most of her face is pretty easy to paint, but there are a few areas that I need to get around. So I'm going to be using at first my round brush, and then I'm going to be switching to a square brush. So I'm just going to leave that on the canvas so you can see when I switch over to that. I'm going to leave the color right in the cup, and then using the round brush, I'm going to start at the top of her forehead. I'm going to come right underneath the hairline, and I'm going to go around her really cute eyebrow. And we'll be painting that a little bit later. I'm going to come across under her other hairline, and I'm going to be painting around her other eyebrow. Now be sure you only use a little bit of paint because we don't want to glob this paint on. If you have a ton of paint on your paintbrush, it's going to be really, really hard to paint around her features on her face. And I'm going to come around her eye and underneath her other eyebrow and on the side where her hair is. Okay, so I'm using a very, very light touch. I'm not pushing hard into the canvas at all. It's almost like I'm trying to tickle the canvas with the brush. I'm going to come underneath her eye. I'm going to come by her nose. Now if you go over the black lines that are here, that is completely okay because we're going to come back with a little bit of black paint at the very end, and we can draw those lines over again with a little bit of black paint. So I'm going to come right over those lines. I'm going to come underneath her lips to her chin and right around. So I'm using just barely any paint. So you're going to have a ton of this color left over for other projects that you might want to do. And very carefully I'm going to come around her lips. And then right on the side, she's got 3 eyelashes and a little bit of skin by her hair. I'm going to come in just really carefully and put a little bit of color. And I might go over the eyelashes a little bit, but once I put the black in there, it'll cover up any of the tan paint. I'm going to do her neck. And then if you'd like to, you can switch to the square brush to paint in her arms. If you'd like to go a little bit faster, or if you want to stick with the round brush, you can paint in her arms as well. So you can stay with the round brush, or you can switch to a square brush, and it'll just go a little bit quicker because you're able to cover a little bit more area faster. So either brush works just as fine. So I'm just being really careful to stay inside the lines. I'm going to come down by the heart, and I'm going to use the edge of the brush to help me out. And then she has her arm that's in the back. So I'm going to use the edge of the brush, and I'm going to paint in her arm that's in the back. Right, and there she is. Right, so she looks a little weird without her eyes and her lips and her eyebrows, but her face will come together, I promise. All right, so I'm going to put her skin tone back. I'm going to put the lid on it. so it doesn't dry out and I can save this color for other projects. So I'm just going to put this color kind of up at the top of the camera screen since I'm done with that one. I'm going to rinse out my 2 brushes and then we're going to move on with our next color. So Emma's looking great. She's got amazing skin color. Let's move on to Andrea. So I'm going to take the container marked Andrea. I'm going to take the lid off, and then I've already gone ahead and taken off the seal on my paints. And then the same thing, I'm going to use the round brush, and then I'm going to have a square brush handy. I'm going to go ahead and turn the paint canvas towards me, so that way I don't accidentally run my hand across Emma because she might still be a little bit wet. So I'm going to start with the round brush, and the same idea, just a little bit of paint at the end of the paintbrush. Then I'm going to start right underneath the hairline. And I'm going to move around the eyebrows. And then very carefully, I'm going to go right around the eyes and then the eyelashes on the side. So again, if you get a little bit of paint into the eyes or the eyelashes, don't worry too much because the black that we use for the inside of the eyes and the eyebrows will cover up any paint that you get inside of the lines. Right, I'm going to go right underneath her eyebrow and then around her eyes. And then very carefully on the sides of her eyelashes. So the same thing again, a little paint over the lines of her eyelashes, but once I paint the black, those eyelashes will pop out. Okay, very carefully coming down her forehead. A nice thin coat of paint. I'm going to come underneath her, under her other eye, and then just kind of right on the outside of her hairline. I'm going to come right over the black lines on her nose because we're going to come back and define those a little bit later with black paint. Very carefully underneath her jawbone and her chin. And then very carefully around her lips. So I'm just going back and smoothing out some of my paint on my canvas. Beautiful. All right, next we're going to do the neck. I'm going to stick with this small round brush for the neck. I'm going to be careful of her shirt. I'm going to move over to that nice flat square brush that I really like, and I'm going to come in and do her arms. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the arm that's in the back. So again, make sure you use the brush that's the most comfortable for you to use. You might like the round brush still, or you might want to try the square brush. I'm going to go ahead and turn my canvas the right way so it's straight up and down. I'm going to take a look at both girls. And then do any touch-ups that I need, making sure that all of the paint is pressed down into the canvas and smoothed out. All right, great job. Now, if you'd like to, you can let the paint dry completely and you can put a second coat of paint on each of the girls, and that will make it just more of a solid color, or you can leave it with one coat of paint. So that's completely up to you. For the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and leave it with one coat of paint. I'm going to put both of my brushes over here. For the demo picture, both girls have 2 coats of paint, so you can see that it gives a little bit more of a solid background to it. So that's entirely up to you whether you want to leave one coat of paint and you can see more of the brush marks, or if you want to go ahead and put 2 coats of paint and make the skin tone look a little bit more solid. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on my skin tone for Andrea, and I'm going to set that up at the top because I'm done with that right now. All right, let's rinse out both of those brushes, or one of those brushes, whatever you decided to use, and then we're going to go ahead and work on our styling and our clothing for both of our Lego friends. We're going to style Emma now. So let's grab our purple paint and remove the lid. And I've already gone and taken the seal off of the paints. We're going to take a square brush and we're going to take a little scoop of purple paint right from our square brush and place it on our foam tray next to our white paint. And then I'm going to take this container of purple and just set it down. So just like we did with the light blue and the white, we're going to take a little bit of purple paint and white, and we're going to pat it together to make a really pretty light purple, our lavender color. And this is going to be for Emma's shirt, and it's also going to be for the background of her paint palette. So I'm just patting the color back and forth. Then I'm going to rub my paintbrush off on the paint tray so I don't have too much paint on the paintbrush. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint the inside of Emma's shirt and give her some style. I wish I had a top that looked like this. It's really cool. I'm going to take just a little bit of the dark purple and just put it a little bit on the back of her shirt, just because that's where all of her hair is. I'm going to make it look a little bit darker on the back, just to make it look like there's a little bit of shadow right there. Not too much, just a little bit. Just kind of blending it in. Yes, I definitely wish I had a purple shirt like that. That would be great for spring. All right, next I'm going to come up to her headband. And I still have my light purple, that lavender, but I'm going to mix in a little bit more of the dark purple. I want her headband to be just a little bit darker. And I'm going to stay with the square brush, but I'm going to use the edge of my brush. And I'm going to come up and go around and fill in this headband. And again, please, if you need something smaller than this brush, you can use that little tiny round one. All right, so I am going to switch brushes now. I'm going to put the square one in the water. I'm going to grab a round brush. I left a little bit of paint on it, so that's why I just rinsed it off really quick. I'm going to go back into a little bit of the dark purple paint, and I'm going to use that on the tip of my paintbrush. Let's give her a nice splotch of purple paint. I think she would be really happy with that. Then I'm going to carefully turn the canvas, and I'm going to paint the background palette of her paints in just a really light lavender. Not too much paint on the paintbrush. Remember, a little bit of paint goes a long way. If your paints start to feel sticky, especially when we're doing these little tiny areas, just add a little bit of white to it, and white will smooth it out. Smooth it out like butter. So I'm not too worried about going over the lines for these little paint splotches. I just realized that this is the hole that your thumb goes through. So we're gonna need to come back and paint that little hole sky blue in just a second, because that part you can see through to the background. Sorry guys. So we'll do that in just a second. When we're done painting purple, we'll come back and do that real quick. Alright, beautiful job. Next, I'm going to come and I'm going to paint the music note up here in a dark purple. So if you want to save this and paint it another color, then you can do that as well. But I'm going to just paint it a nice dark purple. All right, there we go. So we have our set of eighth notes. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so I'm done with all the purple. I'm gonna rinse this little tiny brush out really quick, dry it off. I'm gonna come back over into the sky blue color that we mixed earlier. It's a little dry, so I've got to mix just a little tiny bit of sky blue. Then I'm gonna come over and fill in the little thumb hole on the art easel that I forgot to do at the very beginning of the painting. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out all of the brushes that are sitting in my water, and then we're gonna switch to Andrea and we get to do all of the amazing yellow and style design for next. All right, so we've got all of our purple down. We styled Emma. We're gonna switch over to our gorgeous yellow color that we have, and we're gonna style Andrea. So we've got her top, her music note in her hair. We've got the top of the microphone, and then you can change this color. So if you want maybe like a pink microphone, you can do that too. So you can style these things any way that you want to, but I'm just gonna demo it in the yellow. And then I put the little part that connects the handle of the paintbrush to the bristles in yellow, and a little splotch on the art easel. All right, let's get started. I'm going to start with the square brush, and I'm going to take the lid off my yellow paint. Oh, my lid's stuck. There we go. All right, so the paper's off my yellow paint, and I'm going to start with the top. So I'm going to turn my easel just a little bit to make it easier to get to, I'm going to go straight into my paint that's in my jar, and I'm going to be doing the top part of the sleeves, this little inside and her whole top, but the cuffs of the top I'm going to do in the same color as the jeans. Then I'm going to paint right over the pencil mark, and I'm going to leave that pencil mark showing through the paint. I'm not going to try to cover that up. It'll just be a really light line, but it'll help me see when the painting's done where the two arms are, so it actually looks pretty cool. I'm going to go around Emma's hair, or Andrea's hair, excuse me. Alright, so I'm just using the corner edge of the brush to get down into the little cuff of her sleeve, but it might be really easy with this part to switch to a little tiny round brush. I'm going to come down her top and the front. And then if you'd like to add any texture like I did in Emma's top, we can grab a little bit of clean white paint and we can lighten up the top and the front with a little bit of white paint, and that'll just add a little bit of texture to it. Kind of blend it in. Alright, nice job. I'm going to take the square brush and put it in water. I'm going to move over to a round brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint a splotch of paint on the art easel. And then I just noticed on my canvas that the music note isn't drawn in on the demo painting. So let me draw that in really quick. And then yours will be, of course, already drawn in for yours at home. I just missed it on this one. So I'm going to rinse this brush out, the round one, really quick. Thanks for waiting for me. And we're going to go ahead and paint in her music note for her hair. I'm just going to be really careful. This is a little tiny detail. Then once I paint her hair brown, this will stand out a little bit more because I'm going to come right around some of those lines that are on the canvas. It'll be much easier to see. I'm going to paint the line where the handle of the brush meets the bristles, and then very carefully I'm going to paint the top of the microphone. And then of course you can style the microphone any way that you'd like to. Great job. Alright, so we're going to go on to our next step. Let's clean out the brushes that we have in our cup and close up our yellow paint. Next, we're going to be styling our pants, the cuff, and then our little paint splotch in the dark blue. So I'm going to have a square brush handy and a round brush handy for this one. I'm going to start off with the round brush, and I'm going to start with a plain splotch on my art easel. Next, I'm going to do the cuffs for the t-shirt. Just a little bit of paint, especially with this blue, will go a long way. And then finally I'm going to go to the pants. I'm going to move over to a larger brush. I'm going to rotate my canvas. Right. When I start with the black paint, I'm going to be starting with the inside of the eyes and the eyebrows. We'll be also doing Emma's hair, the paintbrush bristles, the microphone holder, and then the little attachment for the two parts of the microphone that come together. For the majority of the detail, I'm going to be using that really pointed round brush. I'm going to grab some black paint, but one of the tips that I'd like to give you is when I use this black paint, I'll just dip the bristles of my brush in a little bit of water, and then I'll grab a little bit of black paint and thin it out just a little tiny bit, not so that it's dripping water, but almost so it makes it a little bit thin so that I can work with the paint a little bit better. I don't want to have a big glob of paint on the canvas when I'm doing detail work, especially when I'm doing the eyebrows or the eyelashes, because it'll be very hard to work with the paint. So I just barely break the surface of the water with the bristles of my brush, and then I grab a little tiny bit of paint so it's almost like an ink pen. So the paint comes out very, very thin, but not dripping. Then I'm confident when I come over to the eyebrows on Emma that when I begin to paint, the paint is going to be very, very thin, and it's just going to go right in the spot that I want it to. So just a little bit of water at the very tip of your brush, just enough to break the surface of the water, but not dunk your brush into the water. Then we grab a little tiny bit of paint, of black paint on the end of the brush, so it feels like an ink pen. Then we can come over and fill in the inside of Emma's eyebrows. and we're using a very light touch. So if you want to practice this on your piece of paper, practice making a very light line versus pressing really hard. You can practice what it feels like to paint with a lot of paint, which is really thick. You can practice what it feels like to dip your bristles in, and practice what it feels like to paint with that really smooth line. That might be a good idea for you to practice if you're not feeling really confident. So I'm breaking the surface of the water with the bristles, grabbing a little tiny bit of black paint. I'm doing the eyebrows. I'm going to come in and do the eyelashes. And then this is going to seem a little weird at first, but we're going to color in the entire eye black. And we're not going to add any white to the eye until almost the very end of the painting. So it's going to look a little interesting at first. I'm going to be like, what happened to my friends? So just very light, just kind of coming around right there. I'm going to jump over to her other eye. And I like to start kind of with 3 eyelashes and then fill in the eye. It's a little bit easier for me. Good job. Then very gently, I'm going to outline the little line for her nose. So she has the nose. Hooray! She can smell. I'm going to come over to the bristles on her brush. I'm going to paint her bristles in black. Very good. I'm going to be very careful and turn my canvas. I'm going to continue to use the same technique, and I'm going to come over to Andrea. Give her some gorgeous eyebrows. Be careful of your blue paint if it's not dry yet. Oh goodness. I'm going to start with her eyelashes in the back. 1, 2, 3. Two, 3. Very carefully, I'm going to outline her nose. Going to do the line that attaches both halves of the mic together and the handle of the microphone. And again, you can style your microphone with whatever colors you want to, but since we're working on black now, if you'd like to have that black handle on your microphone, we're going to go ahead and paint that in right now. Right, so their eyes are gonna look a little weird just for a little while until we get that white. But once we put the white in their eyes, it's gonna look amazing. I'm really happy with this. I'm gonna put my round brush in the water. I'm gonna switch over to a square brush so that I can do Emma's hair. So coming straight into the black paint, I'm gonna have some fun now and just being really careful with any of the wet black paint. I'm gonna come in and paint her hair black. I'm gonna be really careful, of course, around her face. Now that Emma's hair is done, I'm going to go over and I'm going to work on Andrea's hair. And I put the black and the dark brown right next to each other on my paint tray. To get a nice dark brown for Andrea's hair, I'm going to take a little bit of the dark brown and a little bit of the black, and I'm going to mix them together, just kind of swirling the paint back and forth. Mix together this dark brown color, which I think will contrast really good in the painting. So find that nice contrast between that dark black color that we have for Emma and a dark brown color. And you'll see that happen right on your paint palette. It actually comes out really pretty. So once I've got those colors mixed, I'm going to start to work on Andrea's hair in that dark brown color. When I work towards the music note, I'm going to switch to a round brush just to kind of work on those detailed areas a little bit easier. I'm going to pick up a round brush to help me get in some of these detailed places. going to switch to this little tiny detail brush to get around the music note. I'm going to rotate the canvas so that the music note is closest towards me so I can see some of those details. So I went out of the lines when I painted the yellow. So I'm just bringing the paintbrush in and kind of going back over that music note again. Our brushes, and then we're going to go on to our next color, which is going to be our pink for the lips for both Emma and for Andrea. Let's take our pink. It's been waiting to be used, kind of sitting there. I'm going to grab a round clean brush, making sure that I got all of that dark color out of it. I'm going to take a little bit of the pink color that I have straight from the container, and I'm going to put some of that pink on my palette, just straight up pink. And then this is kind of fun because this is where you can customize any of the things that you have on your pieces in the background. So if you wanted a pink handle for your paintbrush, you can do that as well. So in the demo, I have a brown colored paintbrush handle. So if you want to come back and paint that in brown with a round brush, you can. For the demo that I have with you on the video, I'm going to go ahead and paint her paintbrush handle pink. So I'd like to try something just a little bit different because I'm in a pink kind of a mood today. Oh, beautiful. All right. I'm going to also take a little bit of this pink and I'm going to find a clean spot in my white paint. And I'm going to mix together a light pink color for Emma's lips. I'm going to go more on a pale pink side, but not too light, or she's going to look a little bit washed out. So still kind of a bright pink color. And I'm using that nice round detailed brush. That nice sharp one, the same one that we used for the black when we did the eyes. Very carefully, we're going to do the inside of her lips. Now to thin the paint out, we can add a little tiny bit of water from the water glass, but you might want to try it on a piece of paper before you touch it on the canvas. So I'm going to go straight across the very top of her lips, right above her teeth, and then tracing right underneath the line from her teeth. Then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of her lips very, very carefully. Very, very carefully, very lightly. So the mouth always looks, to me, really, really kind of silly, just drawn in without any color. And then once you get the color on the mouth, it's like, okay, looks so much better. So just go slow and be really, really careful. so that they have nice big smiles. Right, next, Andrea. She has a gorgeous complexion. It's a little bit of a darker complexion, so I don't want to go too light with the color of her lips, else it's going to be a little bit washed out. So what I like to do is I like to give her a little bit more of a deep rose color. So I'm going to take pink, and then I'm going to go straight into the dark purple paint. I've got some left on my tray, but if you need to come back and grab some out of your container, you can do that. I'm going to mix the pink and the purple together. It's going to give me a little bit more of a dark magenta. I really like that, and I'm not adding any white to it, but I can show you what happens if we add white. So if I take a little bit of white and I add white to that, then what happens is it lightens that color up, and it gives me more of a pastel color. So I kind of want to stay away from the pastels. It'll be a little bit too light, and the color will get lost against that gorgeous complexion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that dark, beautiful, rich tone color that we have. Sorry, I lost some of my paint there in my demo, so let me mix a little bit more. So I've got that nice dark rose color, and I'm going to use that color for Andrea's lips. So by adding just a little bit of purple, her smile is really going to stand out. If you go too pale, then we're going to lose that into the background. While I have all this color on my brush, I'm going to grab just a little bit of straight up purple, and I'm going to tap it onto my paint palette, and then my paint palette is pretty much complete. And drop my round brush into the water, and then we are ready for some finishing touches into the eyes. But before we do that, we're going to set the background for our canvas. So we're going to be using pink, purple, and white. I'm going to show you how to do the background. We're going to give time for our picture to set up and dry, especially our eyes in the background. I definitely want to make sure that those are perfectly dry. I want to make sure our hair is dry so we can add some of our highlighting details. So let's finish up the background of our canvas, and we're just about done. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite parts. All right, our large square brush has been hanging out waiting to be used. It's like, oh, when am I going to be used? All right, it's kind of like the end of the game, and it finally gets tagged into play. All right, so one of my favorite things is this really gorgeous textured background. So you'll see that I've got kind of this lavender color that we made for the lips. We've got white, pink, and purple going on. So how did I do that? All right, mystery solved. Let me show you. I'm going to take this brush, and I'm either going to go between pink and purple and white, and all of these colors are going to be really messed up by the time we are done. So you probably won't be able to use just straight purple again by the time we're done. So make sure that everything that you have that you want painted purple or pink is painted before you start this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose either purple or pink. I'm going to tap my brush straight into the jar, and I've got a little bit of color on either side. Then I'm going to find some clean white, and I'm going to tap my brush into the white paint. So I've got white on either side. Now this technique is so much fun and so easy to do. Probably your cat or your dog could do it, but I wouldn't recommend it because they would get messy. I'm going to tap the canvas. And I'm going to pat the canvas almost like I'm saying, oh, good job, canvas, you did a good job today. So I'm just patting it, and then you can already start to see the white paint and the pink paint kind of make this really cool pattern. So then the next time I go in, I'm going to grab purple and white, and then I'm going to add purple a little bit on top. And I'm going to start moving around the heart. Now as I move around the heart, I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to use the edge of my brush, but I'm not going to get too close to the heart, because one of the things we're going to do is we're going to outline the heart so you've got a little bit of room. So I'm just patting, pat, 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 and you'll see that those colors kind of blend together on the canvas on their own. So at this point, I can decide if I want more purple. So I can add more purple to the canvas just by patting, or I can add more pink. And what's really great about this is the first time in our painting that you'll have like some lumps of paint on the canvas. You'll have that raised paint on the canvas. Usually I'm like, press all the paint down, use a thin coat of paint. Well, here it's okay to have little splotches of paint. You just want to be really careful that you go slow so you're not splashing paint onto your gorgeous picture. So nice and slow, and you'll get that really cool texture. All right, if you want to go the extra step, you can very carefully lift up your painting and do the side edges as you go along. Just want to be really careful, really careful that you don't get this on your clothes or that you splash it everywhere. All right, so let's work on this background, and then when you're done, you can find me in the video and we can work on the last finishing details. Just remember, you're going to need some clean white paint without any color in it for those last finishing details. All right, good luck guys, and have fun. Great job on your backgrounds. So let me show you some finishing touches. So just be careful, if your background hasn't dried all the way, you can let it dry all the way and then come back, and then you can add these finishing touches. I'm just going to leave my large brush in the water, and I'm going to clean that up when the video is all done. So for finishing touches, I'm going to be using a square brush and then probably a little tiny round brush as well. So the first finishing touch that I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the outline for my heart. I'm going to come over to whatever I have left between my purple and my pink paint. I can use just purple paint, or I can make a mixture of the purple and the pink to make that really pretty kind of rose color that we had before. And it doesn't even matter if the paint has any white in it. Our paints are really kind of messy and fun and all mixed up and kind of crazy looking. So whatever color you have left, whether it's pink or a really light pale lavender color, it is not going to matter. Any color that you have is going to be gorgeous for this. So I'm just going to mix together a color on my plate of what I have left. And I'm going to use this for the outline of my heart. All right, there we go. That looks like a nice mixed up messy color. I'm going to use the edge of my paintbrush. I'm going to start at the top of my heart, and with my brush I'm just going to outline around the heart. I'm just going to make one nice outline right around the heart. Paints are getting a little dry, so I'm going to add a little more color. There we go. Beautiful job. I'm going to go ahead and put that square brush into the water because I've got another one over to my side. I'm going to take this detailed round square brush that I have. I'm going to put the surface of the brush into a little bit of water just to wet it a tiny bit. I'm going to find a little bit of purple paint. It can be just straight purple, or it can be a little bit of a darker mix. I'm just going to outline the inside of my artist palette, just right on the inside where you hold it, just to make it look a little bit three-dimensional, to give it a little bit of depth so it kind of pops off the page. So I'm just looking for just a little tiny bit of purple paint. And just kind of outlining that little inside corner just to make it look a little three-dimensional. I'm also going to come around the top part of the loop of the handle where you hold it, so that looks a little bit three-dimensional when you hold it. And that'll give it just a little bit of depth. We can also come around this little bottom corner just to give it a little bit of shadow as well. Okay, great job. That looks really good. If you want to do any touch-ups in purple, you can do that as well. I missed a little tiny bit on the headband, so I'm just going to come in and hit that really fast. All right, beautiful work. Okay, highlights in the color white. I'm going to take this little round brush and rinse it off. I'm going to use that one more time. Right, highlights in white. I'm going to use a square brush to help me with this next step. I'm going to highlight on Emma and Andrea in their hair. I'm going to find a little bit of clean white, and then I'm going to find any space on my paper, and I'm going to tap off that white right onto the paper so I get a really dry brush, which means there's hardly any paint on it at all. I'm going to follow the curve right on Emma's hair, and we want to make sure that the black is completely dry. And I'm going to come just on the inside of her hair, right where she's sitting next to Andrea, and I'm just going to give her hair a little bit of highlight. Just so they look a little bit separate from each other, and just on this inside curl. So I'm grabbing a little bit of paint and then tapping it off on the paper so it's not too dark. Next I'm going to do right inside the curls on Andrea. And then a little bit on the inside of her curls. Just a really, really dry brush so you can hear it scratching on the surface of the canvas. And then a little bit across the top of her hair. Next I'm going to do a little bit on the surface of the jeans, right across the top of the leg, and then a little bit in the music note. I'm going to go across the top of the music note, a little bit on the wings, and down the handle of the microphone. Perfect. And then a little bit on the skin. So right down Emma's arm. I'm going to do just a little bit of white and right on the very top of Emma's front arm. Just a little bit of light hitting them. All right, good job. So the painting is almost done, but it still looks a little bit not complete until we get the eyes put in there. I'm going to put the square brush in the water, so let's finish up these gorgeous eyes. So using this round brush with that really super sharp tip on it, the super fine detail, we're going to finish up these eyes. On each of the girls, in the right and the left corner of the eyes is a little mark that shows the corners of each of the eyes. So we're going to go ahead and put those in for each of the girls. So grabbing just a tiny bit of white paint at the very tip of this nice round brush, we want to be very careful, and we're going to come in and we're going to make a mark in each of the corners. 1, 2. So just a very nice thin line. And you want to make sure your painting is completely dry so you don't accidentally get paint on your hand. So we have highlights in their eyes that shows the back corner of their eyes where their eyelashes are, and the very front corner. And we're going to do that for each of their eyes. And you can tell already once we put that in there, it's like, there she is. She looks gorgeous and beautiful. I'm going to do the back and the front. I'm going to turn this slightly. Oh my gosh, it looks so much better already. Now for the white dot in the eye, my favorite part of the paintbrush to use is you can use the very tip to make the white dot in the eye, but if you turn your paintbrush over, you can put the back end in the paint and it makes a perfect dot. So I'm going to put a white dot up in the back corner for Emma. For each of her eyes. And then using the back of the brush, that little tiny baby round one, I'm going to put the white dots in for Andrea. So congratulations on your amazing Lego Friends painting. I hope that you had as much fun creating this as I did, especially when it comes to the art and the music. These girls are amazing and have amazing talents. just like you do at home. So I hope to see you soon for your next painting. Remember, you can rinse out these brushes and use them again. These are really great brushes. Also, put the lids on your paints because these will stay and you can use these for other projects that you have. And I look forward to creating with you again. Have a great day, everybody.